Welcome to the Confidently Balance Your Hormones podcast. My name is Dee Davidson, and I'm a hormone health expert, master mindset coach, and multiple wellness business entrepreneur. I'm obsessed with helping you experience hormone balance, confidence, self-love, and live a life full of joy. I know we're about to have so much fun together, so thank you so much for pushing play today. And now let's begin. Welcome to another episode of Confidently Balance Your Hormones. This is your guide, Dee Davidson, and today I've invited Joanna Kleinman, psychotherapist and coach, who empowers women in their M.I.N.D method, M-I-N-D, you'll hear all about that, to silence their inner critic and blends coaching with neuroscience to transform lives personally and professionally. And for those of you who've been following me for a while, you know that I am a big mindset junkie, because if we don't get the mind right, then it's really difficult to pull all of the other pieces in and really feel our best selves and show up for ourselves the way that we need to every day. So welcome, Joanna.
Thanks so much for having me, Dee.
Before we dive into your M.I.N.D method, I would love for the audience just to get to know who this Joanna is, who is she all about. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been teaching this method and what made you go this route.
Okay, well, all right. So I actually started personal growth at the age of 12. Okay, it's
amazing.
It actually, very grateful to my parents, right, for introducing me to that. So knew that I wanted to do this work, at a very early age, became a psychotherapist. I was a psychotherapist in private practice for many, many years. And I loved the work that I did, but I found that traditional psychotherapy just missed the mark, right? And so I created the M.I.N.D method because I really do feel that we need to understand how to use our mind in a way that taps us into a very different emotional experience that has us behaving very differently. And most people believe that our emotions, or right, how we're feeling about ourselves, how we're feeling about our life is due to our circumstances. And it is not. How we're feeling about our circumstances is only due to the thoughts that we automatically think. Right? So if you think about it, just like our body breathes for us, we don't choose our thoughts.
That's right.
So the M.I.N.D method is basically learning to understand that the thoughts that you're having right now about your business, your health, your relationship, whatever it is, they're basically the same thoughts that you had 10 years ago and 10 years before that and 10 years before that. You have a 9-year-old version of those same kinds of thoughts, an 18-year-old version, a 28-year-old version, and so on and so forth. And so when you can really understand that your thinking is automatic, conditioned, and that it's really a pattern, now you have what I know is a superpower, because now you can, instead of getting swallowed by your thoughts and your beliefs, you actually become the observer of them. So when you can observe those thoughts that make you feel overwhelmed or upset or whatever, when you can observe them and you can know exactly what they are, why they're there, why are they really being triggered, what are the deeper messages that are underneath them, you have the power to unhook from that thought and that belief and tune into something very different that changes literally the trajectory of every single important part of your life.
It's like I know that you know Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yeah, it's very similar to Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, except it's, listen, the truth is it's packaged in a way that's, easy to understand. And I think that all of us we're really taking ancient wisdom and we're packaging it in something that is easy to digest,
Mhm.
easy to understand.
Mhm.
And that's really what, I consider myself psychology meets neuroscience, meets ancient wisdom, meets spirituality, meets coaching, it's kind of all rolled into one.
And it all has to go together, I just think
Ah,
that it's cool. I've studied a lot of the neuroscience stuff myself. It's really cool to understand the science, but at the end of the day, we're still human beings, right? So you have to understand, as you're stating, all the pieces of it. And it sounds like you have, I don't know anything about your program. Um, you have it broken out, M-I-N-D. So is
yes.
there I'm guessing that there's something for each letter?
There is. So basically, the M step is to meet your automatic mind. Okay. So meeting your automatic mind means, again, becoming the observer, not fixing it, not changing it, not doing anything different other than what does my mind keep saying to me, right? When my husband does this, or my supervisor does that, or my children do this, what's really going on? The right understanding that it is those thoughts that keep showing up that you mistake for facts.
Hmm.
The I step is investigate the indication signs. I call those the blinking red lights.
Okay.
How do you know that your automatic mind has taken over control,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So those are those same old emotions, those same old body sensations, and those same old dysfunctional or self-sabotaging behaviors that we engage in, right? We engage in those behaviors because it all starts with a thought.
Right.
The end step is neutralize the never ending message. Okay. So let's say, I'm going to do a really benign example, right? Let's say, you tell your husband to, take out the trash and he forgets. Okay.
No way.
Silly. Right. I know, right? Ah, shocker. Right. Okay. So silly example, right? But they're right. I have worked with women that have almost a rageful reaction,
Hmm.
right? And that's not about the trash.
Hmm.
That's about something deeper. That's about he never listens to me. He doesn't hear me. He doesn't care about what's important to me, right? All of these deeper issues. And if we trace that back, we can see that your husband is not the first person or the first circumstance that's triggered this.
Hmm.
So when you really start to see this as a pattern, you start to interact with the triggers in your
Hmm.
life in a fundamentally different way. The D step is design your life. So building the muscle to clearly see, oh, that's my automatic mind. That's not me. I'm separate from my automatic mind. I can actually put that automatic mind on the palm of my hand. I can hear it speaking to me. I can know with the indication signs exactly when it's there. I can know what's really being triggered, which is all those unconscious kind of hidden beliefs that we carry, we kind of drag around with us from the time that we're little. And designing your life in a very different direction is about being able to put that on the palm of your hand
Hmm.
and literally in that moment, within seconds, being able to unhook yourself from those automatic thoughts, those automatic stories, which get louder,
Hmm.
particularly as we are stepping into, right, unknown territory,
Hmm.
things that we don't know how it's going to go, when we're doing our most important work,
Hmm.
when we're fulfilling our dreams and living our life's purpose, that voice, that automatic voice in our minds that speaks to us 50,000 times a day gets louder,
Right.
quieter. So designing your life isn't just about like, I certainly want everybody to reach their full potential. And I want everybody to be able to really do what they're meant to do in their life.
Hmm.
But I want them to enjoy the journey. And too many people, when you're on this path of, I want to live my best life is going to happen when
Hmm.
the circumstances are met,
Right. They're
right?
looking
When
for
ideal,
destination.
of course. So there is no there, right? There
There's
is no
always something that's going to be
always.
there.
Absolutely. And what I think is the something starts in the mind and starts with that never-ending message that we've been dragging around with us since we've been like 5, 6 years old.
I love that. And most of my clients, I think they are age 40 plus. I have one of my latest clients is in our 80s, right? So we have a whole lifetime of beliefs and call it autopilot, right? We gotta when I have a discovery call, I share that my number one goal is that when you leave, you might not be totally a conscious being, but that you are making more conscious decisions and that you're back in your body, not on autopilot. Because all of the habits and the things that we do every day, and I tell people, you ever just going down your street and you got to take the right, but all of a sudden you're like at the next light because
Yep.
you're on autopilot and you're not acting in a conscious aware state. So this so resonates with me. Now, for
Yeah.
my listeners, they might be thinking like, well, how long is this going to take? Because I know when people, they work with me, they're like, well, how long does it actually take for me to break the habit of being me, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, right? How long does
Yes.
it
Yeah.
take? And how do people go through this process with you?
Yeah. So, how long it takes is the moment that you really see what this is, what your mind is, what all of the reasons why it's saying what it's saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's the moment that you start to shift.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's a muscle. So, like any muscle, right? It's not like, oh, I want to get in shape. I'm going to go to the gym for like 3 weeks and then I'll be in shape. And then I
That would
never
be
have to go to
nice.
the gym again, right? Wouldn't that be great? It is a muscle that is developed, right, over time. Now, I do have a program that I created. It's a 6-month journey.
Mhm.
The beautiful thing is that it's done in a very small group of women. And the reason why I bring women together is because when you start to see yourself in other women and you start to see, you know what, my circumstance is totally different, but we are all the same.
Mhm.
I've got my I'm not good enough thing.
Mhm.
You've got your I'm not good enough thing. And you really start to see that it's not personal to you. That takes your insights and ahas, like it literally magnifies them, like, by 100.
Mhm.
So when I start this program with people, I'm telling you, within like a month, people are saying, oh my gosh, I had this interaction with, fill in the blank, my mother-in-law, my
Right.
boss, right? And even a month ago, I would have handled that in a completely fundamentally different way.
Right.
To your point, because we're becoming conscious.
Uh-huh.
And consciousness, we are mind, body, spirit. That's all interconnected, right? So when you talk about balancing your hormones, right? Our hormones are also connected to our minds and our thoughts and the energy that we create inside of our body, right? And what most people don't understand is that our energy really is created by the thoughts that we think every day.
Right.
So, that cliche saying, change your thoughts, change your life, it really is true, because you don't just, you change your whole experience of yourself and your life. You change your relationships with people. And that in and of itself, when you're waking up in the morning feeling energized and lit up by who you are and by what you're creating and by your interactions with people, it changes your neurochemistry. It changes your
So
hormones. It
true.
changes everything. Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Speaking of hormones and women's health, maybe you can just give some examples of people that you've worked with or how this can help improve a woman's health and hormones.
Yeah. Well, so I think that one of the biggest things that happens is that we start to really explore the not just the habits of thought, but the habits of behaviors, right? So the way that we treat our bodies is really a microcosm of the way that we treat ourselves.
Hmm.
So in terms of helping with hormones, a lot of people, when you start to get more conscious and you start to, as I said before, unhook yourself from those thoughts of fear and doubt and I'm not good enough and I'm not sure I have what it takes and I can't do that in the comparison game. And you really start to lean into developing a different relationship with yourself. Some of the behaviors that you used to rely on for soothing, for numbing,
Hmm.
those start to go away. Listen, the other thing that can happen is certain relationships start to go away, which can be scary, right? A lot of women in my program, start to kind of pull away from some toxic relationships, maybe some toxic friendships. They pull away from toxicity that they've created within themselves.
Sure.
And so they just start feeling lighter and freer and more expansive. And that plays a huge role in hormones.
Agreed. Agreed. And again, we talked about this in the past. Thoughts and beliefs. They do manifest in your health. So it's really important to be careful what you're thinking about because you do manifest your reality, and that shows up in your health, 100%.
Absolutely. And when you say, you have to be careful with what you think, and it really is true. But if you don't understand why you're thinking it, a lot of people talk about positive affirmations and well,
If you don't believe it, though.
exactly. You can't, this is not about like faking it till you make it or
Right.
toxic positivity or anything like that. It's really actually, really what it is it's using your emotional pain
Uh-huh.
as the brilliant teacher that it is.
Uh-huh.
So we're hardwired
Uh-huh.
to want to run away from pain. We don't
Right.
want to feel those emotions, right? Now, I don't believe that you have to, feel these emotions and go deep down into your
Torture
past.
yourself.
Yeah, right. And I also don't believe that you have to get lost in your past, right? But what it's really about is understanding that your emotional pain right now is because of a thought that you're believing as a fact.
Uh-huh.
And when you understand, wait a minute, even though my mind is going to keep saying that, I can actually create a space
Uh-huh.
between my authentic self
Right.
and that mind. And the truth is that many, many people never really access their true authentic self because they mistake that's who they think they are for what their mind has been telling them since they've been a young child.
Right.
And if you think about our life, you know unfortunately we are also hardwired to seek out evidence to prove
Get it,
our
right? Whatever we want to believe.
yes, right? So these beliefs, they've created a filter through which we've seen ourselves and through which we've seen the world. So I always say to people, you can't remember what you ate for breakfast
Mhm.
3 days ago, but you remember where you were standing when you were 18 and little Bobby asked Susie to the dance and didn't ask you to the dance, right? Why? Because it went right to that core pain of I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I have, right? And that's what we keep dragging around with us. And that's the very core belief
Mhm.
that puts a cap on what's possible for us
Mhm.
moving forward.
Yes. Powerful stuff. I know that you
Yes.
have your podcast and you talk a lot about the inner critic. And
Yes.
do you have any tips or any insight on where to begin with silencing, or maybe not silencing, maybe that's the wrong word, but redirecting the inner critic.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting that you use the word silencing, because I don't call it silencing, because we can't.
Right. It's
Right?
not going away.
No. So dethroning your inner critic is really about taking her, right? She is separate from you. Your inner critic is not you, right? So taking her off the throne
Hmm.
of your mind, right? So the first step, and I would say, just pay attention. Like, what is my mind saying?
Hmm.
You could even write down some of the things that your mind is saying, and then ask the question, is that really true?
Hmm.
And how do I know that that's true?
Hmm.
What evidence have I gathered
Hmm.
to prove that true? And is there evidence that I can find in my life that's the opposite of that?
Hmm.
And then to kind of start to explore, if I no longer believed that thought or that belief as true, what would be possible in my life?
Hmm.
Right. And that's how we start tapping into a bigger vision. That's when we start actually accessing our intuition.
Hmm.
Right. I do, a lot of work around the mind, but a lot of my work is about not using your mind. Right? We use our thinking for everything, right? We have these decisions and we're like, let me think about it. Let
You
me
want to be logical.
Yes, right. And then mostly, you think it and you ping pong back and forth, and then you choose the decision that, feels, good enough, right?
Right.
Our bodies know within seconds if we can access our deeper wisdom,
Uh-huh.
if we can access the wisdom that lives in our heart, that lives in our gut.
Uh-huh.
We know immediately what's right for us and what's wrong for us.
Uh-huh.
It's just that we're so conditioned to use our minds and our thinking to navigate our life
Right.
that, again, we don't have access to that deeper inner wisdom that knows immediately.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. So much
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And the other thing, I know you were saying, what can your listeners do? The other piece of this is, you know, a lot of us were sort of on this pendulum, right? Where we get, oh, if we reach that goal, or we got what we wanted in life, we get really, really high. Oh my God, that's the thing, that makes me feel so good. And that lasts a New York minute.
Not too long.
Yep. Right? Before we're back to feeling like we're not good enough. And so it's not just about looking at the thoughts and beliefs that make you feel not good enough. It's also looking at what I call your automatic attachments and demands
Hmm.
that life needs to give you this,
Hmm.
or this person needs to make you feel this, or I have to
Hmm.
reach that goal. And that's the thing that's going to bring me joy and fulfillment and gratitude.
Nothing outside of you.
Absolutely. And, again, connecting this with hormones,
Hmm.
when you are able to tune into, consciously plug yourself into joy, gratitude, fulfillment right now,
Hmm.
not when those conditions are met.
Hmm.
And again, you're building that muscle to really plug into that on a daily basis. That in and of itself does wonders for your hormones.
Yes, agreed.
Yep.
Agreed. It's an experience, right? The experience that we're each living. My experience is different than yours, but finding that joy, that is one of the things that I do practice with my clients too, is setting the intention of how do you want to feel today,
Yes.
rather than looking at the conditions of what's going on around you.
Absolutely. And Dee, your conditions are different than
Right.
mine. But if we were going to talk about our fears, if you were going to, say these are my deepest fears and these are the worst case scenarios I think about, and I were to talk about my deepest fears and my worst case scenarios, we'd find some common ground there.
Mm.
And that's what I love about bringing women together, because you recognize this is just our human machinery.
That's right.
right? It's not personal. And when you stop taking what your mind says to you so personally, and you really recognize a lot of it is deeply rooted in our DNA,
Right. How we're
our
wired.
that's how we're wired. Our minds are always seeking out danger to try and protect us. But now what our minds do is seek out worst case scenarios.
Right.
And our bodies, our physical bodies, when you imagine a worst case scenario, or you replay a conversation that you had with somebody that upset you, your body and brain cannot tell the difference between an imagined story
Uh-huh.
and an actual reality. So again, talking about hormones, we put ourselves in fight, flight, freeze
Hmm.
constantly
That's right.
because we are engaging with what our minds automatically are hardwired to do, which is to have us pay attention to danger.
Right.
So that's another thing that has us reset nervous system, hormones, is really understanding that it all starts in your mind and it all starts with you, right? Even the quality of your relationships, how we show up in our most connected
Hmm.
relationships. I always say the closer you are to somebody, the younger you become, right?
Hmm.
Right? Like
Yeah.
your husband forgets to take out the trash and you're like a raging like 5-year-old
Your
having a
inner
temper.
child's coming out.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So, it really is mind, body, spirit connection. And then we start showing up differently with the people that we love, even when we're upset,
Uh-huh.
even when we have to communicate something that has triggered us, we are more able when we're really understanding how, this work, we're able to take ownership of our own
Uh-huh.
triggers. And then we can respond instead of react.
Hmm.
And that responding as opposed to reacting changes the way somebody else shows up towards you.
Hmm.
So it's interesting, one of the other byproducts, I'll say, of women that come into my Mastering Your Mind program is many of them talk about their primary relationships are improving significantly.
Hmm.
It's not because their partner is doing anything different.
Changing, right?
That's right. They're
We can
showing
only
up.
take responsibility for, for ourselves. And I shared with you when we got on that I had that women's retreat on
Yeah.
Saturday, and a lot of the stuff that you're saying, it's so true. We had 12 women there, and most
Oh,
of them did not know each other. There were three women that came that found me that I had never met before, but we do have so much in common. And one of the women, she said something that was really powerful, is that we can only control two things: how we treat ourselves and how we treat others, right? So we can't expect that
mhm.
other people are going to change. They may or may not, but we have to reflect and go within to say, how can I treat myself and how can I treat others?
Exactly.
Control.
And how we treat others very often starts with how we treat ourselves and how we think about ourselves.
Mhm. It's so
Yeah.
true. So I'm sure there's some women listening that are like, all right, well, let's get to how do we get started? So what do you have upcoming? What can people plug in? Where can they find you?
Yeah, that's so great. Thank you. So, I do have a Mastering Your Mind program that's starting in October. It's starting the third week in October. Now, and I am particular about who comes into the program, so I do like to talk with people, just to kind of get a feel of where you're at and see if it's a fit for you. So, if you're interested in connecting with me, I would love to speak to you. You can go to my website, dethrowingyourinnercritic.com, and set up a time to speak to me and let's connect.
Wonderful. Do you want to share your podcast as well?
Yeah, so my podcast is Dethroning Your Inner Critic. I have a best-selling book on Amazon, Dethroning Your Inner Critic. That's where you can find me on social media. I am dethroning your inner critic all the way around.
And everyone needs to dethrone their inner
Thank
critic.
you for listening to today's
love
episode
that,
of
love that.
Confidently
And
Balancing Your
thank you for
Hormones.
sharing your
If you
your
enjoyed
gifts with the
today's
world, 'cause it's
episode, I'd
so
love for you to
necessary
share it with a
because we
friend
can't
and
help
also hit
being
follow
human,
at
but
the
we
top of
can
this
learn
podcast.
the
If you have a
tools and
couple
learn
of
how
minutes
to
and you
shift
can leave a
things
quick
for
review,
ourselves.
it will
I'll drop
help
all
other
of
women
the
in need
links
find
below
this
in the show
podcast.
notes. If you're
You
new
can
to
find me on
podcast, you
Instagram
just scroll
at
down on the end of the episode, you'll have the direct links to
I would love to stay
Joanna's
connected and hear
book
from
and
you.
her podcast and her website. So thanks so much for being on. It's been a pleasure having you share.
Thank you so much, Dee. It's